If you played The Witcher 3, you know that when CD Projekt Red goes in on a project, they go whole hog. That's why the gaming world lit up on a random Monday in August when the company released 48 minutes of Cyberpunk 2077 gameplay, seemingly out of nowhere. We watched the trailer, we took the notes, now let's dive into the biggest reveals from Cyberpunk 2077. Character customization wasn't a huge part of the Witcher series. Yeah, the occasional haircut was nice, but all in all, the game lacked a lot of the depth that defines RPGs. Well, that's all changing in Cyberpunk 2077. Players will have the option to pick from either a male or female character. Apart from the traditional tweaks to body type, clothing, hair, etc., you'll also get to define your character's backstory, which helps sets up the entire story of Cyberpunk 2077. It remains to be seen how your decisions will impact the overall game, but choosing a life event such as the death of a sibling, running away from home, or your first big kill is sure to play a part in the greater story being told. Once you develop the backstory, players will have a host of cosmetic decisions to make to create the perfect Night City resident. Players with a flair for designing that perfect playable character will be happy to know that a multitude of options exist for each major category. Because we're living in the future, we get a new cosmetic variation in the form of mods. Tattoos, piercings, and now cybernetic implants can all be utilized to give your character that unique feel. Players will also feel right at home with the game's standard stat setup, but the addition of reflexes, tech, and cool categories adds a little something unique to the standard strength, constitution, and intelligence. Finally, we have the intentional lack of a class structure in Cyberpunk 2077, at least for now. The game makes a point of letting players know that there is a fluid class-based system in the game, and although we didn't see much in the way of talents or progression systems, you aren't pigeonholed into choosing a playstyle right out of the gate. Night City is a huge, bustling metropolis of crime and corruption. CD Projekt Red is hoping to build a world that is seamless with no load screens and pure gameplay. The game is officially coined as a narrative-driven open-world RPG, set in a darker version of the future. And from what we've seen, that sure seems accurate. The game boasts strong language, nudity, gruesome combat, everything you'd expect to find in a dystopian society. You play a small part in a power struggle between various rival factions, such as the Maelstrom Gang, Scavengers, Militech, and Corporate Tech, just to name a few. You're a gun for hire, and with fixers like Dexter DeShaw out looking for muscle, there's no shortage of work to be done. The game seems to follow a tighter quest system than that of The Witcher 3. We didn't get to see any quest logs or deep dive into any menus, but it was apparent that random encounters could easily turn into side quests if explored. As with most open world games, each interaction could spark a series of events that leads you well off the beaten path. Combat in Cyberpunk 2077 is a huge departure from that of CD Projekt Red's previous games. Cyberpunk 2077 is played in the first person and prominently features gunplay. Everything from shotguns to automatic pistols to self-targeting machine guns were teased in the trailer. The game also teased stealth combat, which includes silent takedowns and stealth hacks, which allow a player to tap into an enemy's biometric matrix and influence the world they're connected to. Melee combat was also teased with the introduction of the Mantis Blades, a type of integrated sword system that was not only deadly, but functional, allowing players to hang from walls. As I previously mentioned, hacking plays a large part in the game's combat. A player can disrupt an enemy's ability from a distance by hacking into their system and uploading a virus that makes them unable to function in combat. Standard run-and-gun gameplay is also a huge component of the game, but with the addition of a bullet time mode called Karishnikov, double jumping, sliding, phasing, and real-time combat analysis, Cyberpunk looks to take players into the future with combat that is not only fluid, but incredibly satisfying. Enemies also look to have various resistances and weak points, which players can identify using their cybernetic enhancements. Cyberpunk 2077 is a narrative RPG, which means interactions with non-playable characters make up a large part of the out-of-combat experience. Players familiar with dialogue systems present in the game like Fallout and Mass Effect will feel right at home with Cyberpunk's systems, but options quickly lead down different paths, and players will have to make choices about how they choose to tackle a mission. The game touts a massive living world, with each member of society having a complete day-night cycle. Decisions from one mission may come back to impact the game down the line, so thinking ahead and making each decision with care seems to be key. A wrong decision could quickly turn violent and lead players down a much more difficult path. Ultimately, each decision is left up to the player, and with a lack of deep dialogue options, players must react instinctually to the situation at hand. Cyberpunk 2077 is an RPG, and a good RPG is nothing without the gear. One of the most unique features in the game is the ability to upgrade your character at the Ripperdoc, a sort of black market surgeon that upgrades the tech built into your body. For instance, upgrading your optics gives you the ability to zoom in a certain distance. Once zoomed in, a player might also have the ability to scan targets, learn their strengths and weaknesses, as well as hack enemies, disrupting their combat functionality. Upgrades also include improved weapon functionality and HUD information, granting players more combat effectiveness and real-time weapon information. Ripperdocs don't come cheap, and it looks like each one will provide players with a unique set of upgrades, some legal, others not so much. Getting around a massive open-world game takes time, and while no quick travel system was teased during their first gameplay trailer, players will have access to a variety of vehicles throughout the game. Cars, bikes, and other vehicles were all promised during the demo, and it looks like players that struggle operating a vehicle in first person will be able to switch to a third-person view seamlessly. Combat also looks to be an option while in vehicles. During a car chase scene teased during the gameplay, your character hangs out the window to exchange a volley of gunfire with a group of enemies. It doesn't look like players will need to drive and shoot at the same time, but it remains to be seen how this feature will operate outside of a scripted storyline. As far as we can tell, obtaining gear in Cyberpunk 2077 is done through a combination of looting and purchasing. Vendors seem to pop up throughout the city, with gun vendors not only selling you new loadouts but upgrades to existing weapons. Players will also be able to discover weapons during various raids throughout the game. Blowing up a scavenger hideout? Be on the lookout for powerful upgrades. The game doesn't seem to go out of its way to identify lootable items, but players will have the ability to pick up items off tables, from storage containers, and of course, off bodies. Cyberpunk 2077 introduces us to a new type of currency, the Eddy, a slang term for a sort of futuristic euro. Players will be able to use the Eddy to purchase everything from soda pop that restores health, to weapons, to cybernetic upgrades at the Ripperdocs. Players will also accumulate street cred throughout the game. This acts as a sort of pseudo-progression system that will allow you to access new vendors and new content throughout Cyberpunk 2077. Items can be equipped that increase the speed at which you accumulate street cred, and with little details being released about what you actually have access to with your street cred, this remains a rather large mystery. For a game like Cyberpunk 2077, balance is key, and with it drawing on dozens of titles for inspiration, it's no doubt we end up with a wide variety of systems to explore. As with the Witcher games, preparation seems to be key in Cyberpunk 2077. Using biometric upgrades, players will want to scout a situation out before diving into the fray. Scanning enemies and vehicles will not only provide basic information, but more mission-critical intel, such as threat level, damage type, and resistances. Players with a high enough scanning level will also be able to discern weak points and threat reduction hints that could potentially open up new ways to deal with combat threats. Scouting also proves to be handy in the heat of combat. After certain upgrades have been unlocked, players will have the ability to see enemies behind walls, detect critical items within an area, and detect traps and other equipment that could potentially ruin your day. CD Projekt Red looks like they've learned from their mistakes of the past, and although nothing is certain, there seems to be no need to dive into cumbersome menus and prepare before a big fight. Obviously, as we learn more about the title, we'll take a deeper look at the systems found throughout the game. But from what's been revealed so far, everything seems to be right at the player's fingertips. Although we didn't learn much about secondary skills during the August reveal, they did pop up in a number of places throughout the gameplay trailer. Hacking, engineering, and scanning all seem to be skills that can be leveled up. Engineering can be used to fix, assemble, and disarm items blocking your path, while hacking can be used to circumnavigate various security features. The game also showed a crafting tab, which one can assume will allow players to build, upgrade, or modify existing weapons and cybernetics. The game also touts an inspection mode, which allows players to take a careful look at certain items more closely, unlocking clues that could potentially help players with their quests. CD Projekt Red has said that Cyberpunk 2077 is playable from start to finish, but at this point it remains to be seen just how much more work is left to be done before fans get their hands on the title. With a game as large as we can expect Cyberpunk to be, there is sure to be months of playtesting, bug fixing, and tweaks that need to go into the game before it's ready for launch, but with 48 minutes of engaging gameplay released, it's hard not to get hyped about the title. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what comes next as we keep our eyes peeled for more details coming out of Night City. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider giving us a thumbs up. We're a relatively small channel and any help we can get is greatly appreciated. Or consider writing to us in the comments section below. With so much to unpack, we're sure to have missed a small detail here or there. So if you picked up on something, feel free to share it with our community. We also invite you guys to join the Game Gurus Discord server, where we talk about the latest video game news, titles, and trends, including Cyberpunk 2077. The link is in the description below. My name is Kodiak, and from everyone here at the Game Gurus, thanks for watching, and play on.